Hello, I'm Sasha. I'm 31 years old, and I'm a hermaphrodite. A hermaphrodite is a person who was born with the sexual characteristics of both sexes. They are both a guy and a girl. I just had a hypertrophied clitoris. I had labia, very enlarged. I had tubes, and for example, there were no ovaries. There is a cervix, but the uterus is not developed. I ask, how can this be? But maybe I'm a living example of that. There were no eggs. Constantly, everyone thought that somewhere there were eggs. 2. Yes, like how can a man be without them? And why is there hair on the face? Why? The chest doesn't develop at all. That's why the clitoris is like that. They actually told me that it was a penis, yes, but it wasn't a penis. My testosterone is very high. My adrenal glands just produce a colossal amount of this hormone. But everyone said that at 18, everything would be clear. Everything would be known. That's how nature played a joke on me. There was some kind of genetic failure somewhere. Even in the womb, naturally, the person led an unhealthy lifestyle, either drinking or using drugs. Chaotic sexual relationships, maybe. Mama refused. She refused me even in the maternity hospital. I kept asking why. Maybe because she saw that I was born as someone unclear, not really anyone. My older sister told me that when she was pregnant with me, people told her, Svet, why are you giving birth? You know you won't be able to give this child anything. She said that the government will feed it, a statement of refusal of the child. And as far as I remember, it was written there. I refused my son. I don't remember, in parentheses, maybe daughter. I was sent to an orphanage. I even have it in pieces. By the way, I remember how we little kids stood by the windows. And a red car would always come to pick me up. For some reason, they took me around to different hospitals and then sent me to a boarding school. And I always looked out the window and imagined that a car would pull up and Mom and Dad would get out and they would take me from there. In my passport, it says Alexandra. Good Suliak. That is a girl. When I came to the orphanage, they introduced me to my caregiver, and right away they asked me, "What's your name?" Everyone was already looking at me sideways. I mean the other kids. And at that moment, I remember I said, Shura, Sasha, and right away I had the association that Sasha is a boy, Shura is a girl. I understood perfectly well that I was a girl from the very beginning. I just realized that there was something wrong with my body. I am very grateful to that nurse who called me Sasha, because it's unclear how my life would have turned out if, God forbid, I had been raised as a boy. I was very much in my childhood, very active, very energetic. After all, I was a tomboy. By the way, I actually hung out more with boys than with girls. I remember I called the caregiver over in the evening. I was about 14 years old. And I say, Marina Yuryevna, with tears in my eyes, but why do girls already? have breasts? Well, some girls are starting to get little bumps there, but I don't have any. And she answered me, because Sashenka, it's still too early for you. Everything has its own time, and I kept dreaming about when I would have breasts, probably when I was 16 years old. 15. I understood perfectly well who I was, because by then I was already a teenager, and I started to notice some things about myself that seemed abnormal to me. It was facial hair growth, a deep, velvety voice. Hair growth on the legs. I understood that I have big hands. I understood everything perfectly. I just kept dreaming until the very end that still something would change. But nothing changed. And they kept taking me to hospitals. They kept taking me to hospitals. They kept diagnosing me. There were a lot of them, and some of them were even unclear to me. All I remember, of course, is the word hermaphroditism. I wanted to hide from the kids. As a child, it was normal with the boys. I would run around and play like any other kid. But when we became teenagers, of course, they noticed that my body was developing differently. Everything was visible on my face, these hairs, which I would burn off with a lighter. And I would burn them, and tell myself it's better to have burns than for this hair to be visible. At the orphanage, we all showered together, everyone, both the older and the younger kids. And one day, I always turned away, of course, in the shower. I would cover myself up somehow, and there was this girl from the senior class. I won't say her name. She was so beautiful, always standing out everywhere. And then one day, she grabs me by the hand. She leads me right to the center of that common room and starts pulling me around somehow. I was smaller, thinner, like that. I fell to my knees. Who are you? Are you even a monster? I remember sitting, curled up on my knees in the middle of that room. Everyone was watching. Some were laughing. Some were adding their own comments. That's something I'll never forget. You know, of course, like any other girl, I really liked a boy. Actually, more than one. I was very insecure and a very closed-off child. Never did I say or admit anything because society didn't accept me. These children I grew up with, they just didn't accept me. That's all. That's why I couldn't love at 18. One time when I went to the genetics center, there was a question about what I should do next, and they just told me that it was an expensive operation. You know, there really are kind people in the world who are not indifferent to the fate of others. They helped me at the technical school. I met such a wonderful person, Yuri Alexievich. I opened up to him and told him all about my problem. And thanks to him, we went from Kryvyi Rih to the plastic surgeon in Kyiv, Vasily Vasilyevich. And he agreed to do this corrective surgery for me for free, and I am still grateful to him for that. It all started with him, with the plastic surgery of the hypertrophied clitoris and labia. At one point, I started bleeding, meaning my menstrual cycle began. But it didn't last long. After that menstrual cycle, it was about a week. I started having severe abdominal pain. I didn't understand what was happening to me, and the bleeding stopped. I'm not even 25 years old yet. They couldn't find my fallopian tubes. So, naturally, they said I supposedly couldn't get pregnant, and that's all. At one point, they were found. How were they found? They found one pipe, but the second one still hasn't been found. It just burst on me. The infection started. They cut me open and did surgery. They washed all my insides, and after that, I didn't have anything else. No more blood. And to this day, I don't have a menstrual cycle, and of course, I can't carry and give birth to a child. But I have a sex life, just like all normal girls and women. I also just have an Adam's apple, but my thyroid is simply enlarged, very enlarged. Because I had hormonal imbalances. I went into free swimming. That was after college, and I just had... It was just that everything in my life was so bad that I thought about suicide every day. There were such stiff bristles that I think you could even cut your hands on them. My voice was rough. I had already started working, and we worked at night at a sewing factory. I was like that, emotionally drained. The world is such a huge Bluetooth next to which I stand, and it just sucks everything out of me. And I was dying. And that night I called my friend, and I'm crying into the phone and telling her that I just can't take it anymore. I'm just already at my breaking point. She says, "Sasha, it's okay. Just go home. Everything will be all right." And she registered me for the project 1+1, Return My Beauty. They called me one wonderful day and said that they wanted to help me. And what will this project give me? And they told me that they would help me become the complete girl that I am. But of course, physically, not everything is fully developed. I gladly agreed, simply because I already had to do something, and they kept asking me, "Weren't you afraid to go under the knife?" And, I wasn't afraid, because I already had, as I said, reached a peak. Either I leave or something else happens. Something had to happen, and of course, I chose this project. I had a rhinoplasty. That is, my nose was done, my cheekbones were done. The angles of this jaw were filed down and trimmed because I had an angular face. My ears were done too because I was a little bit lop-eared, so they fixed my ears as well. I also had my breasts done. Now I am taking hormones that help the development of breast tissue. Sasha, before the surgery, after the surgery. Of course, they're different. I became so more confident in myself. I started to love myself thanks to the people who, of course, did a tremendous amount of work with me. Love yourself, please, and everyone around you will love you too. When I had my first experience with a young man, I can't even remember now when it was, but I was liked by guys. Even back then. That's all you need to know. At the moment, I'm dating a young man who is very, very nice, who understands everything and accepts me. I grew up all my life in Creevy. It's a metallurgical city where naturally metallurgists work. Very tough guys. Very tough. Sometimes women too. Like me. They don't accept people like me. It's black and white. Here. Yes, I had to run away. It's just that in Europe, people like me are treated a bit better. That's why I took the first opportunity. In a week, I packed my things, got my documents ready, and flew abroad. I've already been living abroad for 4 years, and I feel great there. Listen, my dream is so wonderful. I want to dance, to sing. I want to work on the radio and wake up all of humanity in the mornings and make them happy with my velvety, beautiful voice. That's my dream, to walk beautifully in high heels and speak into a microphone, to become famous. That's my dream. To be young and not knowing what gender I am is on one hand sad, but again, being young is wonderful because while you're young, you can change everything. And I changed, and now I know what gender I am. And that's wonderful.